Now today is the day my little old 2-litre TDI A3 becomes an RS3. So I bought this Audi RS3 because it was a Cat B, and you can see why. It cannot go back on the UK roads, but it was such a shame to waste. It has this 2.5 5-cylinder engine that sounds like this. And you cannot waste putting that back on the road, but we can't use that car. So I found a 3-door A3 2-litre TDI, which was also a bit poorly. It's done high mileage and it's not looking great, but it's a nice exclusive Sprint Blue. It's a really nice base car to swap a 2.5 into from a diesel. Now this is part 5 of this series, and in the previous parts we've been swapping over all the bits, so go click in the top right hand corner and go and watch those up to date. And you join me now with stripping some more of the cars. Now that was a lot easier than the A3 because I learned a few things. Oh, get. Now, as you can see, the RS5 was here. That is now gone. I have sold that and I have replaced it with a dashboard and a steering column. Now, there are a few things I've done differently from removing the RS3 dashboard thing. As you can see, I've left the steering column on. I didn't have to remove that, which I'm really happy about because it's a pain in the arse. And if I don't have to do it, great. And also, I didn't have to mess around with any of the fuse box either. I just clipped it back in. I could leave it in situ like that, which means all the wiring all around here, look, I didn't have to mess with any of that positioning, which is one of the things I was worried about, getting the orientation of wires correct. Luckily, didn't have to mess with anything. We're all good. I do have a massive trail of wires behind me, but this is the whole wiring loom for the whole car, bar the engine bay. Now, if we head over to the rest of the car, we have the wiring for the engine bay, and we can see it's just in here. I haven't disconnected any of it yet. Again, this is a lot better method, so we can see actually where the loom goes in the engine bay. It goes into the sockets, which are obviously disconnected, goes into the body control module for the immobilizer, and it goes into our brake pedal and accelerator pedal. And I actually thought it went to the gear stick, but it doesn't. That must be one of these instead. So that's what we got to do now. Remove the brake pedal, remove the accelerator pedal, remove all this wiring loom from here and the engine bay, stick it in the A3, and then that dash can go back in. So now I'm stripping the RS3's engine bay, ready to put it straight into the A3. Most of these things are exactly the same, i.e. the wiring loom and the way it goes, but it is petrol to diesel. There are some slightly different things, and it's just about getting everything in the right order. There we go. We're good. This is a nightmare to get off because it's just stuck on with sticky pads at the back, and it's fine levering it out a little bit here, but obviously I can't get anything behind this side of it to prise the sticky pads off. So 20 minutes now I've been trying to get this off. I just don't want to break it. Wow, it was that simple. It was that easy, look. I could have done that. There you go, that's what it was. I could have done that 20 minutes ago without getting angry. That was really easy, and it took all of 15 seconds. Right, so I'm going to stick my heat shielding on, and absolute nightmare getting off the RS3. Because some genius thought it'd be a good idea just to completely surround the steering rack, which is obviously on the RS3, so I had to drop the whole subframe again just to get it out. So that's fun. So here we got the full wiring loom for the car, every single wire inside the car, and then we have our wiring loom for the engine bay. Now I've started putting on the back panel there, the heat shield there, you can see, and just before I put the brake servo back in, I am going to feed the wiring loom back into the car and dot it all around the engine bay because it is quite fiddly to fit it around the back of the brake servo here. And then once that's in position, brake servo in, I'm going to put the master cylinder on and then connect up our ABS pump and then just start building outwards for the engine bay point of view, get the wiring in the car and then go ahead and stick the old engine and subframe in. So straight out the RS3 and straight into the A3. The reason I did it like that is so it was so fresh in my mind. I knew exactly where everything went straight away. And as I said, it is quite similar to the A3, but it was a while since I did that too. So it's just nice to get it fresh, straight in, no issues whatsoever. And then just put the wiring from the inside the car, put it all in the correct places and connect it up to our 2 pedals instead of 3. So that is now the majority of the wiring, ABS pump, master cylinder, brake servo, all wiring attached all round both sides. The last thing I really need to do before we try and fit the engine back in is actually fit the aircon pipes, which I've got down here. But I can't fit the aircon pipes because they have to plug into the dash, which means I'm gonna have to fit that dash thing first now, and then I can connect the aircon pipes, and then we can get the engine and subframe in. So I just need to whip the TT seat back out, get the dash fitted nicely, and yeah, we're making good progress. I've routed all the wiring as well for the engine loom and into the brake pedal and accelerator is all now fitted too. So yeah, it's all ready to go back in. Just need to remember to fit the airbag control module first. Now I was umming and ahhing about the airbag control module because obviously our RS3 one would have had the seatbelts go, so it would have recorded crash data. A3 one hasn't, but they are, although they're the same part number, the last 2 letters are different. So we got BJ on the RS3 one and N on the A3 one, and all the other numbers are quite different. So, and one also says VW20, VW21. So we can clear the crash data on the RS3 one. It's not really an issue. So I am just going to go ahead and fit that. Coming in. I'm sure this is how the robots do it in the factory. I'll tell you what, this looks a lot harder than it actually was. Because all the wiring looms were attached to that dash thing, it wasn't actually too difficult to slot it in. It's only actually 5 bolts holding that whole thing in. It's 1 on the left, 2 on the right, and 2 in the scuttle panel. And then once I've got it all in position, I can just reconnect all my engine wiring loom harness into that near side front there, and then do all the bolts up. So now finally I can fit my aircon pipes, which means we can get the engine back in. So this is the RS3's carpet, and I was umming and ahhing whether I could use that instead of the A3, but after having a quick look, it's become apparent I can't. So if you can see this like indent here, look, that's where the center console finishes, and from here to this ridge here is probably a 4-5 inch gap. Now if we go over to the A3 one, it's pretty evident that that gap is ever so slightly smaller. Not by much, but probably about an inch. Get it? RS3's one, 110 mil. A3 one, 80 mil. So it's 3 centimeters shorter, the A3 one. So that will have to go back in, unfortunately, which means that can go in the skip. I very nearly forgot the fuel lines, which should have been very upsetting. Oh no, don't tell me. We are cooking. Done. Now there's one last thing we need to do before we put the engine in, and that is drill a hole in the chassis, and that's actually for the engine mount, because it is different on the RS3 compared to the 2-litre TDI, and we actually need to remove the engine mount before we take the engine out. But there is one bolt down here at the bottom which you cannot remove the bolt with the engine in place, and the only way to do it is by drilling a hole in the chassis and undoing it through the chassis. Now this is standard. On the RS3 you'll see there is a hole already cut out for that exact reason, and we just need to make sure we do the exact same thing for here so we can do the bolt up. And the way to make sure we get the right place is by fitting the mount. Right, that's where the mount would sit, and I'm just going to put a drill bit through there or a hole punch and just punch a hole, and then we're going to drill a hole big enough to get a socket through and a bolt to do the mount up once it's in place. So this is the grommet for it. This come off the RS3 and it goes in here. So if I've done my calculations correct, this should just go in lovely. Oh, look at that. Just put some primer over this. And again, because I left the engine and gearbox on the subframe, it made everything a lot easier. I didn't have to mess around with drive shafts, steering racks, anything like that. And it's just slowly jacking the engine gearbox up into the car and then connecting my springs, my suspension on both sides. And then once that's in, I can then jack it up, connect my subframe bolts, which then obviously holds the engine and gearbox in. Job done. Now, I just want to check the fitment of my wings because obviously these are wider than the A3 wings were. So basically I just want to check, make sure everything's good here, and specifically this bracket here, because I don't think it's different from the RS3 one, but I just want to do this to double check. And before I do that, I need some bloody bolts. No, I think it's fine. I think it's just the wing itself that's just slightly fatter. So that's all bolted on. And the other thing I don't know yet is my bonnet. So I don't know if the bonnet needs the facelift one or not. I mean, obviously it's going to be fine there, but I can't find any part numbers on this one or the other one. I'd rather keep this bonnet if I can, because that means I don't have to mess around with obviously the inside of it. But I do obviously need to change the bonnet hinges because they're completely different due to the airbag system. So making really good progress now, and I'm actually quite enjoying this bit, building the car literally from scratch. As you can see, engine, everything in the engine bay, obviously bar the front end, is now plumbed in. And I have made extra special care to make sure every single factory clip is in the correct position. Like everything, all the clips, they've all gone back to where they should be. I actually spent 10 minutes, I lost this clip here. And I spent 10 minutes looking for it because it pinged off somewhere. But I was like, no, that's really going to annoy me if there's just one clip missing. But no, everything is all good. Just test fitted the wing. And you can see here how much it accentuates from the bodylet. So obviously the RS3 side skirt sits flush with the wing, but you can see how much it comes out from the standard one. So that fits lovely, which means I can keep this blue arm here. So that is good. Still not 100% on the bonnet, but I'm fairly certain it's going to be okay. Just got the additional cooler on that side, and I'm just about to fit the one on this side, and then I'm going to put the front lock carrier on and hopefully fit our Revo intercooler. I'm not going to fit the intake just yet, just because I don't know if I need to finesse the gear linkage cable, because obviously it's been in and out, so it might need a bit of adjustment. And yeah, I think then we can get it on the ground, move it about, and then flip it round and start working on the rear of the car. Might put the dash in first though, because that is actually ready to go in. So again, rad pack, pretty simple. It's just held on with 4 bolts each side, 8 in total, can't go wrong. So we've got our updated Revo intercooler here with some pipes as well. Now I thought that when you update or uprate the intercooler on RS3s, you have to replace the crash bar as well, because as you saw, it was so small, it just sits under the crash bar and there's not really much room. But I was looking for the crash bars, like, oh, these come with a new crash bar, I swear. But apparently they fit with the OEM crash bar, so I'm assuming it's going to actually sit nicely behind there. So yeah, that's pretty good that it fits with the OEM crash bar. It means you don't have to modify the car too much. So going to grab that out now, and hopefully that'll just fit up there just like that, and we'll bolt it up. Now removing the stock intercooler should just be a nice 2 bolts, I'm hoping. There we go, nice and easy. Now I'm just going to have a quick look at my condenser, because when I tried to get the gas recovered, it had no gas in it whatsoever. So it could just be the fact that it's obviously sat for 2 years, plus may have never had an aircon service, so I'm not too concerned, but I just want to make sure there's no obvious holes in the condenser which would attribute to loss of gas, which I can't see any whatsoever. It looks absolutely fine to me, so I'm just going to put it down to just the fact that it's been sat for a while, and hopefully it just holds gas, because I can't be able to take it all back off again. Lovely old thing just goes in here, I guess. Fit in, or do I have to take the crash bar off? I'm not 100%. I'm kind of just winging it in a minute. I don't want to damage the condenser though. I've got more room this side for some reason. I might have to pull the crash bar off a little bit. I don't understand physically what's stopping you from bending backwards. There's literally nothing here, fella. There's nothing stopping you from tilting down. So I don't get what the problem is. Now, wouldn't you find it really concerning that I can put a whole car together from scratch, but I can't work out why a crash bar won't come off, even though there is one glaringly obvious bolt literally right in front of me that I couldn't see. It is slightly concerning, I'm not going to lie to you. But that is what I was trying to do, and there we go, removed. And with the crash bar removed, much easier to get on, and then I can just plonk it straight on the front, do all 4 bolts up, and then I just need to fit my intercooler hoses. And we're going to replace the intercooler pipes as well. Reason being is they are a lot tougher, so applying the same amount of pressure, look, you can see how soft that is, and the same amount of pressure, literally a third as much. And that is just to stop, I mean, that's why they put these rings around them, to stop the pipes from expanding. So under heavy boost, obviously these pipes can expand, which obviously these ones are not going to. So I've found my first chassis length related issue, and it's going to be the battery cable. Let me just put my torch on the floor. And obviously I was just running the battery cable along the underside of the floor, and it tucks into the chassis here. But as you can see, look, it needs to tuck in the rail there, but we're about 3 inches too long. And obviously it's because my chassis is ever so slightly shorter, but it's not really the end of the world. I will just adapt that. I'll probably just move that a bit further along, lose the wire somewhere. We're probably gonna have this issue quite a lot with wiring, but as I said, it doesn't really matter. This will be the hardest one to obviously adapt because it's so thick. The others will be a lot more flexible, so it'll be easy to manipulate. But other than that, I think we're pretty much done on the front end. I've just connected my steering column wiring in as well, steering rack wiring, so that's all done. I just need to finish off these wires, put them across the front of the car. Intercooler now all in position as well. I've just connected my brake pipes. A lot of this stuff I've just do off camera because it's not really much you can film. All I did was screw a brake pipe back in, so the brake system's now fully sealed up and all good to go. Got the old RS gear lever all in position now, and we move over to the back. And before I can obviously get this engine started and driving, we need to fit the fuel tank. And before I can fit the fuel tank, I need to fit the rear floor pan here because of obviously petrol, and I'm going to be grinding this out, so I'd rather just do this first. Now this is what we've got to remove, this massive divot here, because this car is front wheel drive and we need 4-wheel drive, and therefore this isn't, it's too deep basically. It needs to be more shallow like the RS3 one. The RS3 one was about over £2,000 because it had an integrated battery tray, which I've got here. The The S3 one was like £200 and another £150 for the battery RS3 battery tray. And the only difference I could see was that they're now separate. I've bought them separately instead of integrated as one. But as you can see, look, it overlaps perfectly anyway. You can see the ridges there and the ridges there. It just sits in a recess. So all I've actually got to do is cut this out here, plonk it down and weld or rivet it on. And that is where the battery will sit, and that will sit here. Now, the official way to do it is to obviously drill out all the spot welds all around the exterior here and then weld the new one in. However, I've just been looking at it and it's quite intricate. There's loads of seam sealer over where I'd have to cut, look in there, so I'd have to grind all this seam sealer away, drill out all these spot welds all around here, and it's just never going to look great. It's always going to look a bit of a mess. So I had the idea of, why don't I just get my grinder, grind, basically just cut out what I don't need. So cut all around the edge here, get this all out. Obviously I can de-spot weld this bit, because then I can just pull this whole floor pan out. And then I'll do the same thing with this one, grind all around here, and then just weld that floor pan into there, and then just stick some seam sealer all around it. Now, I think that will actually look far, far neater, and it will be far, far easier and less time consuming too. So I think I'm going to cut out that first, then cut out this, weld the RS3 battery tray in, and yeah, crack on. So carefully using my grinder, I'm just going to go around the edge of the wheel well to cut it all out. Now, don't get me wrong, this may not work and I may have to end up taking out the whole thing, but at least this way I can try that first. It might work, it might not. And I've also got to remove these spot welds from the rear boot floor, which I'm using a little belt sander to do. Right, so I've just pushed the car outside because there is a bit of an issue I think I'm hoping is going to be able to be resolved fairly easily. But just look at the sprint blue paintwork in the sun. Look, it does look epic. But no, as I was cutting out the spare wheel well, I noticed there was a cross beam just under here, and it was being a bit difficult to cut out. So I just had a look underneath, and I'll try and put some pictures on if I've been able to, because I'm on the floor. But the structural beam that goes across the floor pan, it looks like it sits further forward on this car than it does the RS3, which is a bit concerning, because it looks, on here it sits like here underneath. I think you can, no, there you go. Is that it there? That might be the axle, I'm not sure. But there's a beam, it just looks like it sits about 6 or 7 inches further back on the RS3, and I'm wondering if that's to accommodate the diff. I really hope it isn't, and I'm hoping it's something I'll be able to easily resolve. But I will push it back in a little bit. But now, while the car's outside and I've got loads of free space, I'm going to go ahead and fit the rest of the dash, which I'm hoping won't take me too long, and then I can just get the carpet in, basically just get the front half of the car done, and then yeah, we'll get it back in and get it back up in the air. So I'm going to utilise the light and start filming a little bit outside. I'm going to get the carpet in to start with and then refit the dashboard. Now the dashboard can just go straight in, and it is just refitting like the A3 was. There's nothing different here, only control modules which obviously appear the same. They're just internally different. So yeah, just putting everything back together. Now we're going to move back into the workshop and fit the last few controls, glove box, screen, dash, and yeah, we're pretty much there. So this is the boot floor we need to get rid of. We can see here where our current axle sits just underneath it. But obviously with our Quattro, we're going to need a big fat diff here, which is why this is in the way. But the problem I've got is, it looks like a structural bit here, but I don't think it is. I think it actually just holds the wheel pan, the spare wheel well in, because it's all it bolts to. No, I can't really see, so I'm just going to stick the camera best I can under. Yeah, so that's the cross little beam here, that on the RS3, which sits in, well, behind the spring. So I'm unsure what that actually means for structural integrity. There's nothing really much I can see here because it's all crumpled up. And there we go, look back on the A3, we can see that that beam bit just is on the spring itself, not sitting behind it. I don't know if there's another structural bar that I need to buy that goes across the bottom. I'm going to go and have a look. But yeah, I think now you can see where I've cut it out there. I need to get the axle off, fuel tank off, to then cut this spare wheel well out, and then we can get the fuel tank and the new rear axle in, and then build up our new floor pan around it. Just quickly show you how I got around the battery cable. I literally just slight detour it and clipped it in there, so it's absolutely solid. So that is absolutely fine, and now it's at the right length now to feed into the boot floor when we get one. Yeah, so now, yes, just got to drop all this rear axle, be careful with the brake lines, can't break those, and drop the fuel tank out. So I'm now just going to start stripping the boot, because we need to take the wiring out of the boot anyway, and also need to change our rear lights for the facelift ones. So I'm just going to start by hopefully removing. I do need a new gas strut as well, because I've had to use a pair of mold grips to actually hold the boot up. Fair enough. Bugger all holding that one. Right, so we're going to see what the nice changes to the facelift tail lights. I think that'll make a nice difference to the rear end. So swapping the lights out was easy. It's just 3 bolts on each one, on the inside one 1 bolt on the outer ones each, and we can see the difference. This is before the pre-facelift lights, and then swap them over to the new facelift lights. They look a little bit different, but I think the main difference is going to be when we turn the lights on, because they're LED versus not as good LED. So good progress has been made. Just changed the rear lights and just put the glove box in and a few more center consoles, dash clocks. Basically the whole top of the dash is now done. The only thing left is the center console and the side trims, roof lining, etc. I'm not going to put the center console in just yet, because there is some wiring that I've got to fit in the behind the carpet here, and it's just going to be a bit hard to pull up with the center console in place. So I'm just going to leave it. I've just hoovered in here, put the MIB unit in. So that is all now plumbed in. And yeah, we're looking pretty good on the front. And also in the engine bay, we are pretty much complete as well. There's nothing much I can really do until I get obviously the wings back from being painted. I'm going to drop them down there this afternoon. The wings, the bonnet hinges, the front bumper, and that is pretty much it, I think. And then the front end will just go back together, and then that will be done. So there's not really much more I can do on the front. I do need to take this car out the workshop now to get another one in to start filming. So I am going to leave it there for today's video, guys, because the next thing I need to do is start taking the rear axle off, and then it'll be stuck on the ramp, which is not ideal. So I do hope you've enjoyed this video. I do hope you've enjoyed this series to date. I'm going to try and make the next video the last video in this series, which means there's going to be a lot going on. We're going for the first start, driving it around, and then finishing off the rear end of the car. The only thing I haven't organised yet is the prop shaft, and that is purely because it needs to be custom adapted to fit this car. I don't want to just send them a guess based off wheelbases. I think it should be 6 centimeters shorter, but that's just a guess based off a wheelbase diagram. So I'm going to wait till we've got the rear axle in position. I'm going to properly measure the gap physically, and then send them the dimensions for them to then cut it, re-weld it, and then rebalance it, so then the RS3 prop shaft is going to fit 100%. So yeah, next video should be a good one, guys, and I hope you have enjoyed this video. Do let me know what you think of it so far, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.